Welcome to the Airiam Podcast. This podcast covers topics related to cyber and human resilience. The content's geared towards owners and CEOs of small and medium-sized companies, as well as IT and cybersecurity leaders. My name is Art Ocain. I'm the field CISO at Airiam. Our episode today is about our partner Enable with Cove, and specifically their Cove backup and recovery business continuity products. And joining me today is Chris Groot. How are you, Chris?
Doing great. Thanks, Eric. Great to be here.
Now, I ask everyone who joins, how do you start your day?
Whoa. Usually it involves a cup of coffee. And then it is straight into the morning banter of finding out what happened overnight, because I live in the mountain time zone, so I'm a little further west. So, and we work globally, so we've got a lot of action in Europe going on. So usually by about 6:30 in the morning, I'm already in catch-up mode and receiving some phone calls.
Awesome. Now, I'm very familiar with you. I've been involved with Enable and before it was Enable, all of the previous brands that it's been under, and I've been a Cove user and fan and partner for a long time under its various names as it's progressed. But can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to be a part of Enable and the Cove product leadership there, and specifically, really kind of your background as well?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story, the origin story. What I'll say for myself in terms of background, I accidentally got into the software business all the way back in university. So I was in an MBA program. Like project turns into, we built some, started writing some code. We built a product, graduated, and we had customers already. And so, I would say by education, I'm a finance guy, but by school of hard knocks, I'm a software guy. And so it's been like that since going back, 22 years now. So, and there's kind of been 3 different chapters along the way. The third chapter is the Cove chapter. So what happened with that particular story was I bumped into this guy who was actually the cousin of the best man at my wedding. We had a couple conversations randomly, and he was this Dutch guy, and he just dropped a couple of really interesting facts. And this is going back, 10 years ago. And one of the things he said was, backup business, we work out of Holland. Yeah, we've got 40% market share. And he just kind of said it casually, and the conversation went on. I was like, 40% market share, like what? It's probably not a real fact, but even if you're claiming it, you must be doing something right. So I asked him next time I saw him, I said, well, what are you selling in North America? He's like, I've never been here, man, nothing. Like, I don't know what's going on. And so I said, well, why don't I send you a couple customers? Let's see what happens. And the first customer that we brought on, it was an interesting story because they had a specific problem, this really large file server. It was taking 6 hours a night to back up over the internet. And they were, they're like, yeah, we need a solution. Like, we can't keep this up because people couldn't work on the server while it was backing up. And so I said, well, try this. Let me know how it goes. So I called him up a couple weeks later. I said, so how's it going? And he's like, it's going fine. I said, well, like, you told me about your 6-hour problem. Like, what's the stats? Like, how's it really going? He goes, yeah, we're down to like 15 or 20 minutes a night. And I was like, oh, so your 6-hour problem became a 15-minute problem? And that was kind of the trigger point where, like, oh, I think we're onto something here. And so from there, it translated into, a growing customer base. And, eventually, of course, it gets larger corporate eyes, and there was acquisitions, and we all became one big family and so on. But here we are today. So yeah, that first story, though, still very much resonates in the early days of solving a very specific and difficult problem, which I always frame up as, how do you drive the Mack truck through the garden hose, in a very short period of time, right? It's a challenging problem to solve, but that's what was done early on.
That's amazing, and to think that, dealing with the support team and stuff when it was still that original brand. Very early on, I remember dealing with a lot of Russians on the support team and the development team. So I thought it was a Russian company or a Ukrainian or something like that. Did not realize it was a Dutch company. So that's a great story, and it's great to know that you were in at the beginning. That you really kind of helped identify them, and that is really the origin story of this whole product suite. And so just briefly, where does it kind of fit in the ecosystem with the rest of the Enable suite? I know that we're using it with all of our clients, but and we're using it in a lot of different ways, which we'll discuss later. But as far as Enable, we have Cove, and then there's other products for managing for MSPs to manage small and medium-sized businesses. Do you find that Cove is really kind of a standalone product, or is it really best blended with the rest of the suite?
We have an interest, like I guess a balanced mix. So if I was to step back, like for those not familiar with Enable, I would say Enable's best known as a remote monitoring management like platform for MSPs, also used by some IT pros, but primarily MSP is the focus, and been doing that for a long time. So to organize sort of what we do, there's really three pillars: remote monitoring management, data protection, so that would be Cove, and then the third piece would be security. So that kind of works more hand in hand with RMM, but it's things like endpoint protection, password management, and a suite of other things that kind of wrap around the services that MSPs are looking to deliver. So with those three pillars as kind of the formula or the product set that's delivered by Enable, Cove sitting in the middle. We have a large number of customers, of course, that are also using our RMM platforms, and you get some quality of life issues like sync sign-on and out of the box monitoring and cross-functional. So that's great. But also a large and very fast-growing part of our business is both with organizations that are using other RMM platforms, and so it works very well. Like it can be monitored and deployed and work with any other RMM product as well. And then a sort of, wasn't our intention necessarily strategically, but the market has spoken to us in terms of the internal IT community has also been a fast growing part of our business in recent years as well. And I think it's just, that recognition of looking for ways to, less complex ways to solve old problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've used a lot of different backup solutions, mostly on-prem solutions over the years. And when we started layering in Cove, a long time ago, 10 years ago, it was, we were adding in a cloud backup layer that was kind of like the Hail Mary that we were getting people to recover from, if their on-prem backup didn't work. And over the years, we still tend to layer in technologies just so we have some redundancy and resiliency. But, Cove is our go-to now. It's what we can easily see the status of. We can pull up the dashboard and see how a client is doing, whether we have a backup from this date and what we can recover and where we can recover it to really quickly. And we're using it also with our incident response team. In incidents, when we recover a server, we'll back it up with Cove and we'll install Cove. So these are enterprise environments. They're not our normal MSP customers. They don't have RMM installed. They don't have Enable installed, and we are deploying Cove in order to cover our backs, because we just put all this effort into rebuilding Active Directory after this customer got ransomware. We don't want that to get ransomware again, get attacked again. So in the meantime, we've had to back it up, and that saved us so many times. In most environments that we're in fighting ransomware, the threat actor is still in the environment when we get called. So we're kind of split tasks. We're containing the attack at the same time as we're helping the customer recover. And of course, when you're walking into these incidents, the customer's like, I'm losing $1 million a day or whatever. And they're like, you need to get me back up and running or we're going to go out of business. And so we're kind of doing that dual pronged security and recovery at the same time. And, we find that Cove actually helps us because it's giving us that, immutable backup in the cloud that the attacker can't screw up, while they're on-prem. And to me, that's really the biggest business case for Cove, is that, you're getting this backup out of your data center so that, it can't be messed with. And so we're using that really effectively. And a lot of times that turns into kind of an enterprise solution afterwards. So like after the incident, we'll leave Cove with the customer, and we'll keep monitoring and managing that for them. But that's really the piece that we're monitoring and managing. But we're not managing their security at that point. We're not managing, the rest of their IT. A lot of times they have a full IT team. They just really want this solution to help cover their back. So
it's a really, really good use case that you share. And I mean, if I were to ask you, what's the reason that you can do that? Like in terms of like you recover a server and immediately start backing up. I'm imagining that your answer might be something like, well, it's because it's the easiest way. It's just deploying an agent and like on day zero, really no work, instant results. Time to value is close to zero, right? And that's really been the kind of a first principle of like this cloud first architecture, and really focusing on the quality of life and the labor cost involved that come with traditional solutions where it's a project every time you want to start a backup, right? Where you got to have equipment and connecting wires and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and then you got to patch it and a whole bunch of other things that just Cove takes off the table. I've heard a similar story from MSPs. To acquisitions in the MSP space are it's a growing trend, let's say. And some of our leading acquiring MSPs, so they're on a regular basis, tacking on maybe several times per year. Day one, when the acquisition happens, whatever they're using, they just tack on addition, they put Cove on top. And then they're like, okay, now if something goes wrong with these new customers we've never met, we know that we can save them. And that's kind of the, I guess in terms of risk mitigation, it's the number one thing you can do.
Absolutely. To me, and it blows customers' minds when you're able to recover them, especially when they didn't even realize you were really protecting them that way. And that saved us on IR, it saved us on the MSP side. I've had clients where where they were in Florida and a hurricane ripped off the roof of their factory and their data center and everything, and we had to rebuild everything, and we were able to restore everything from Cove in really a day. It took longer to get the physical servers there than it took to get them up and running. And I had another client that had a fire, and it burned down their data center, and they moved to another building really across the street. And but in the meantime, while they were moving and while they were getting set up and getting phones and lines and everything drawn, in the meantime, we had all their servers recovered in Azure, and we had them up in a nested Azure instance running their servers, and they were able to operate immediately. And as soon as they were able to get a new laptop at their new desk across the street, they were able to log in and get access to their stuff. So to me, that flexibility and the speed at which we're able to move with Cove is completely different than anything else. Like with Veeam, for instance, not to bring too many other companies into the mix, but you need to set up a server. You need to have the backup appliance. Even if you have a cloud copy, if I want to restore that on-prem, I need to install a server with Veeam in order to recover this. I don't have to do that with Cove. I can do a bare metal recovery without installing anything. And so that a flexibility has allowed us to move really quickly through disasters, and really has kind of helped us build our name for resilience and disaster recovery there. Are you finding, like with when you're dealing with clients that have this, what are kind of like the things that are really blowing their minds? What are the customer experience things that you're seeing that are really, that you're able to celebrate with your team and with us?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, stories like you just shared, that the real human element for me is like these organizations, like these customers that you work with, like the stories you just shared with the fires and different types of cyber incidents. Yeah, incidents. These are often like guys that have built their business for like 30 years and their kids are involved, and like this is like their legacy, and like so much is at stake, right? Like this is like, and the fact that we're able to save the day in those circumstances, like as on the human factor, that's a really amazing thing. I Now, of course, any MSP, they've got choice out there. You mentioned Veeam, there's other names, right? Different ways to solve the problem. I think as coming into conversations, people are often have this mindset of like, I'm with the number one product out there. We all know and trust Veeam. This is the way the problem needs to be solved, and we need to like, have that local backup, and then we're going to tack on a secondary process. We're going to get off site, and sure, we need to buy more storage over there, and it kind of grows a lot, and it's a bit to manage, and then I have to patch it, and it doesn't really centrally monitor or I don't have that central I'm going on.
Absolutely.
They have this mindset that it is really the best way that you can do it. And then when someone takes a couple of key architectural changes that really changes like kind of the flow of the way the problem gets solved, and it simplifies it down to way less moving parts, which of course leads to a much nicer quality of life, much better flexibility in terms of recovery scenarios, and that labor cost and the talent level that you need to actually manage your backups, continues to shrink down, right? You can trust a younger, or not younger, but let's say someone who's less tenured in the backup space to be the backup admin, as an example, or to run full scale recoveries. Those are the things where they just never considered it possible. So when you see the light bulb come on to folks and they're like, it really does that, and it really works that way, and I really don't have to think about like the connection speeds, or there's like, you've solved the problem of doing things over the internet where I always believed I had to be on the LAN, all those types of like light bulb moments. And then 3 months later or 6 months later, them coming back and like, yeah, we used to have 4 guys that ran our backups, and now it's like half a day, like a half a job for someone. Seeing those kind of results, or like we used to get 90 tickets a day, now we get like 9, and like the delight of like the impact on their business, because ultimately as a service provider, your biggest cost is labor, right? And so if you can see that equation go down, and at the same time, let's just say the backup guy's job is not always like the most glorious job in the organization. So if you can see less work needing to be done there so they can work on more interesting projects, that's just a win on multiple layers, right?
And it's something that they can depend on too, because there's so many times when we have backup solutions and where it looks like there was a successful backup, and you're not really sure, and there's not really a good way to check until you're actually on fire and need to recover. And the fact that like Cove is thinking about whether it's how to check our validity and our recoverability, how to recover to the cloud, how to recover to different equipment on-prem, how to pull off a server migration or data center migration. Like the fact that your product team is really kind of thinking about these problems that are real problems to MSPs as well as internal IT teams, and solving them for us, rather than just being satisfied with saying, okay, we have a cloud backup product. And the fact that you're constantly evolving it is to me that's why you guys make sense. It's not a static thing that we're stuck with forever and isn't going to grow with us. It's really, as technology changes, so do our capabilities, and love that.
Yeah, I would say trust is like, without that, all else is lost. It doesn't matter what you do. Like you have to have that peace of mind and knowledge that you can trust. And that's the reason why with a lot of legacy solutions, people have put up with the pain involved because they knew they could trust it, right? And so that was worth the price of admission. But we're setting out on this vision and delivering on it to change that significantly. And certainly the trust factor, what I would say on trust is the best way to trust something is to test it. Yeah. That's ultimately with something that gets overlooked because it just is yet more time that we don't have. So, our focus on the automated testing and being able to actually prove, not just, say, trust us, but actually prove the trust, and to automate that process for folks. And more importantly, or not more equally importantly, for helping service providers to demonstrate that proof of testing to their customers, ultimately bringing peace of mind there. That's an important part of the equation too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been core to really how we've been able to be really comfortable with Enable and with Cove, is building that over those years. And, we know that we're able to, do what we need to do, but if we need help, we can reach out to your team. And they're always there. And even the people that have been there since the beginning, like Eric, et cetera, there's just a strong group of people that have been a part of that core group at Cove that have been people we can lean on. And to me, when you're an MSP and you're growing over the years, that is unheard of. I can't think of one company that we work with where there's even a rep that I'm dealing with for longer than a year before they change. And it seems like everybody at especially within the Cove product team there is pretty stable. You're doing something right in that you're keeping your team together. And I'm sure your partners other than us have remarked on that and are probably seeing that as well. For us, we're building Cove into our MSP products. It's been core to really all of our product stacks. We have a standalone product called AirGapped, which is really DR as a service with Cove at its platform. And then on the IR side, I mentioned we're using Cove everywhere in order to cover our backs on incidents. And I think in the future, we're going to keep trying to work closely with you guys and try to, really our goal is to become kind of like a Cove recovery partner or, something like that, where we're working even closer over the years and figure things out. But to me, it's there's no end of possibility there. So what are your hopes for kind of the future of Cove and for where you guys are going? Do you have a roadmap? Anything cool on the horizon here?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to go back to your comments on the team and some of the people you've known over the years and so on. I think I cannot stress, that is one of the keys to success, in any business, particularly in ours. And I think the reason why we've got this strong family and these values of, and commitment to the cause is really around that. We feel like we're changing the world and we're actually doing something different. And it's actually delivering a different level of value for, the people we engage with and the people involved are super proud. It's a meaningful project, right? And so that really helps in terms of stability and keeping people like Eric Harless involved. Man, love that guy.
Yep.
In terms of innovation, so I'll just go back to a couple things that in the last year that I think are notable. One was this seamless recovery into Azure. I heard you just touch on the word migration even. And I was actually hoping to turn that question back to you in terms of, you saw this release where basically, we've got various targets that you can recover servers that they may live anywhere in production. You can recover them to any other location, but then what kind of setting do you land them in? Is it Hyper-V or is it a hyperscaler? Let's think about the benefits of the hyperscaler. Just want to kind of maybe turn the question on you.
Yeah. So, the whole ability to restore directly to Azure is new. Previously we had to use kind of continuous restore, and we would set up a VM in Azure and then restore to that VM, and then we detach those hard drives and make them a part of a new VM in Azure. And that was kind of our way to recover. So it's always had the capability of letting us move people to the cloud with it, but there were extra steps involved. Now we can recover people directly to Azure, and to us that is now a recovery tool as well as a migration tool. We can plan a migration with the customer and basically recover them to Azure, and now we have their server running in Azure, and it allows us to pull off these server migrations without having to think of other methods. So there are other technologies that you can use, like Azure Site Recovery. There's taking a DHC image of a server and then uploading it to Azure and manually creating a new server and everything. But by doing the direct to Azure restore, it actually allows us to really quickly and easily migrate a server to Azure. As far as moving to other infrastructures, it allows us to move them back. And it allows you to move people between data centers. I've used it before where you have somebody in Hyper-V and you have somebody in VMware, and since it's running as an agent within the VM, we're able to move the server over just by doing a restore at its destination. So it's really giving us that kind of flexibility to do whatever we want. I know I've used it in server migrations before where we had failing hardware, and the hardware, so we got in new hardware, and so I started this kind of continuous restore to the new hardware, and then did a cutover. And so we've used it for a lot of functionality other than really just backup and restore. We've used it for a lot of that migration possibility. So now that people have been going to the cloud for the last 5-10 years, but now that it's really full force, there's no reason to set up a server on-prem anymore. Like everybody's internet SaaS now. Cloud is easily consumable. Why would you spend $25,000 on a server to sit in your closet when you can just spin up something in the cloud? So when people have legacy stuff and it just needs to get there, or if they have a server and it's failing and they need to get rid of it, or if their company initiative is to just get to the cloud next year, Cove makes that easy. It actually enables you to go to that hyperscale cloud really quickly. And I would caution customers against just like doing it without thinking about it, because the cloud does create a whole lot of other security risks to think about, a whole lot of other issues. But as far as actually pulling off the migration, Cove makes that easy. I would just caution people before you pull the trigger to actually involve somebody to help architect what you want the cloud to look like first, before you just go and restore there and call it a day. But yeah, to me, it's enabling so much. And I think as people are going more full cloud, Cove is obviously going to be backing up things in the cloud. And it's, the solutions and the resources that you're backing up are going to be not just, VMware and Hyper-V and stuff on-prem. It's going to be cloud resources. And, you're already backing up 365, and that resources suite, SharePoint, OneDrive, stuff like that. But now, Azure, and I imagine that other clouds will follow suit. At least that's my imaginations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're seeing today like a great degree of growth in that, and servers that used to run in data centers, they're now living in a hyperscaler. And for us, because of our architecture, it really doesn't matter if the production's in AWS, if production's in Azure, if it's in an ESX environment, if it's in a Hyper-V environment, any of those. There's one way to run everything that, regardless of where it lives. And so in today's world where there is this transition and so on, being as a service provider, being able to standardize the way you do things, no matter what the environment might look like. Again, complexity coming down as, simplicity, not multiple all those things just leads to obviously better outcomes for everyone.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I think that is definitely the innovation from this last year. Is there anything cool feature wise coming down the pipe this
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, so certainly in the street, like, so you work in the cyber recovery business.
Mhm.
It was certainly one of the areas you're going to see some headlines at some point in the next 12 months, let's say loosely. But along the cyber resilience line, so looking at further aspects on the cyber resilience, touching on the immutability side. So that's always concern about, what are the more layers that we can put in front of making sure we got good copies off the network, isolated,
Yep.
and not at the risk of any bad actor. So there's lots in place already, but we're adding more. Another topic that's of interest is how quickly can you find a good copy to recover from? You've probably experienced the fact that, you start one restore and you're like, well, that's not the right spot. Next one, and you're losing hours or potentially days while all this pressure from the outside to get things running again. That's a relatable story, I hope.
Yeah, I've restored servers 4 or 5 times before the customer's like, oh yeah, this is the one, and
right.
When you're restoring a server and you're downloading the whole thing over the internet, it might be a couple hours every time, so you're losing some time. Yeah.
So finding where the good copies are faster. And so for those cyber incidents where you also need that flexibility to get the initial restore copies into like a sandbox environment so you can run further forensics before you deploy into production again. That's all tying into that flexibility topic in terms of being, ultimately the best tool set for cyber recovery incidents. That's really where Cove is heading, and layering in some of those additional feature sets that, again, just improve the quality of life, reduce the time involved, keep the flexibility that you need depending on the scenario that you're in, and supporting people, and ultimately like getting good rates on cyber insurance and all these related factors that come back to the fact that you have the proper amount of resilience in place in terms of data protection. So that would be. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to mention on the insurance thing that's even more of a requirement than just a risk reduction nowadays. Most of the cyber insurance forms are actually asking you, do you have some immutable cloud backup? Do you have something that you can recover from within? It's asking your RPO and your RTO. It's like, can you recover within a day? Can you recover with less than a day's loss of data, things like that. And so they're asking things like that on the insurance forms. So they're really asking, do you have a way to recover if ransomware or some other kind of event happens? And so I think that's really kind of where Cove is a solution there for people that need to have something reliable and may not want to have this behemoth of a solution to manage. Yeah, because there are other ways to do it, but man, they're a lot more complicated and costly, right? So absolutely. Yeah, and I think with what we're seeing is that Cove is not hard to implement or sell with a client. Like, it's almost it's really, it makes sense. It's a solution that I'm not trying to offer them some crazy thing that requires a lot of storage and a lot of whiz-bang stuff thrown on top of it. It's really easy to roll out. And I think that as we go forward, it's really easy for us to continue to just offer it easily, like in those IR situations where, hey, we can just deploy this to your 1,000 servers and start backing them up. I know we're worried about that right now because you just had ransomware. The threat actor might still be in the environment. Let's just get everything backed up so that we're good. And that ability to be able to pivot and do that, that's something that I'm not seeing anywhere else.
Well, thank you for that. That's certainly it's heartwarming because that was that's the vision we set out on, and to know that we're delivering on that is of course very rewarding. Yeah, some of the other areas we're heading into, just FYI, for the coming year, things you can look forward to is further enhancements around real-time alerts and relating that into various other systems. So basically, other PSAs or other monitoring tools that people might be using, even in the direction of SIM. And, we introduced this year a really nice feature set around user actions log, where it becomes a very nice audit trail of who did what when, exactly what happened. Certainly, we know that as part of any good cyber criminal, best practices handbook is, after you get access to the network, you go after the backups as step one, and that's going to enhance your success rate in terms of getting paid. And so part of that is actually, one of the vectors is that people are, if they can get access to change retention levels, as an example, or quiet tricks that would not be noticed by the average admin. All those details are super important. So further enhancing what we're doing along those lines to highlight those details for any changes that maybe weren't expected, and making it very consumable, because there can be a lot of noise and only a few signals when that's happening, right? So I was kind of curious just to turn around the user action log and the direction that we're going around that level of compliance. What's been your reaction to that?
So to me, that's great, because we've actually seen threat actors try to manipulate the backup agent before. So where they've tried to run the command line backup tool in order to change the parameters, and so they weren't able to successfully, they weren't able to actually manipulate the backup, but they were trying to. And the intelligence of the threat actor showed that they've read the manual, like they're running the commands like they were a sysadmin, like they know what they're doing, and but still they were unable to, with this client. But having that actions log to be able to see that history of this is what they did, these are the commands that were run, and this is forensically, that helps not only to catch like internal mistakes that your team might make, but when a threat actor is trying to do stuff, it's nice to be able to see what they're trying to do and whether they were successful, so yeah, that's awesome.
And insider threat is also part of the equation, right? So that is not uncommon in today's world, unfortunately, as well. So just I guess everyone knowing that if they're on that end of the equation, it's going to be visible to someone pretty quickly, is also kind of a healthy check. So so we're excited about all those things. The last thing I'll say is further enhancing the targets that we're hitting for or like providing for recovery environments. So a revamp on the ESX world, and further enhancing that along the same lines you've seen with Azure, Hyper-V, and other options that we currently have. So that would be a third piece to the equation that we're super excited about, because the more flexibility and broader. Actually, what's been happening is we're being pulled in this direction because we're being pulled into larger and larger customers as we mature and our brand gets further awareness, and they tend to use more enterprise type tools beyond the Microsoft suite, and so that's really what's pulling us in that direction. So we're excited to be able to further kind of open up the aperture to those customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I can see them saying, hey, can we just restore this direct to the EMC array, or can we do this direct to this block storage? Yeah. So that's awesome that you guys are growing in that way. I think that's just going to keep adding more options for the rest of us, that are not in the enterprise space. But when I'm doing IR for enterprises, the more flexibility we have, the better. So I'm sure it's going to be useful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris, so much for coming aboard. I feel like Cove is such a core piece of what we do that, I'm embarrassed that it's taken us so long to have you on. I think there would be, there are probably some some IT people on that would love to see it in action at some point. So we should probably, have somebody from your team, doing some show and tell with our team on for our clients at some point, and do that and really kind of show the features. But as well as there's probably some opportunities to keep talking and really kind of introducing Cove to business leaders that are interested in cyber resilience and worried about their clients and how they're going to keep their business running. So there's a lot of those kind of discussions to be had. Thank you so much for your time today, and everybody who's listening, thanks for tuning in and listening. This was a great discussion. If you're interested in Enable, it's Chris, is it n-able.com?
n-able.com/Cove if you want to get specific to what we're talking about today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Art. Really, really pleased. Glad, that we met many years ago, and really, really thankful for the amount of business we've done together, and certainly hope it continues for many more.
All right. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. New episodes will typically be coming out every other Wednesday. For more information on Airiam, visit www.airiam.com. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much.
Wanna hear